anarchy in the streets right now.
Has been injured. There's rioting. You've started throwing rocks at police.
There's an unjust law is no law at all.
Historic St. John's Church set under fire.
God.
Is this a war going on here? We're really talking about our future. What type of country do we want to be?
Hello, welcome to Holding the Line, America's fight for religious freedom. A lot of opposition has come from those who firmly support a separation of church and state when it comes to the government's use of chaplains. They believe that chaplains have no place on the payroll with government functions. We visited Washington, D.C. and sat down with Phil Wright, Executive Director for Chaplain Alliance for Religious Liberty, an organization that endorses men and women to be chaplains in the military. He too was a chaplain for 28 years while serving 31 years in the military. I asked him why chaplains were important for the military.
Chaplains are important to the military because you are in an organization that requires you to do things that may keep you from attending or performing or participating in your normal religious duties or affairs that you think God has called you to do. So a chaplain was determined to be viable by Congress, lawful, legal, to be able to provide for the religious needs of soldiers. George Washington, his first act as Commander-in-Chief in 1776 was to ask Congress for chaplains for his men to take care of their religious affairs. Chaplains, if they're in the Army, get paid as an Army officer or a Marine officer or a Navy officer, actually, or Air Force officer. They're paid by the government. And in a court case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court, it was determined that that was legal, that was not in violation of the supposed separation of church and state. It was because the service personnel could not take care of their own religious affairs because of the requirements of their duty. You're providing religious rites, sacraments, ordinances. A lot of service personnel, Army for me, soldiers wanted to take care of their religious needs before they went out into an area or before they went somewhere where they knew they weren't going to have that available. They wanted to make sure that they had taken care of what they thought were their responsibilities. They may want your blessing, they may want your counsel, they may want your guidance. In Afghanistan, Iraq, obviously you can't go to First Church on the corner and get that done. Tell the commander I'll be back in a minute. But so a chaplain provides that opportunity, and with a number of different chaplains of different faith groups available in the command, we are able to meet the needs of all the soldiers. They can be in harm's way. They don't carry a weapon. They have a chaplain assistant that protects them. They're not going out on patrols. That's not their role or responsibility, but they are at a forward position where that unit is located. They are seeing what happens when that unit comes into contact. They know what's going on. They see when the casualties come back. They're probably positioned right there to take care of those that the medics or doctors aren't going to spend any time with because they're not going to be saved. They're going to minister to them first, then they're going to go to the wounded, then they're going to go to the living. And so part of our creed in the Army was to nurture the living, care for the wounded, and honor the fallen. And so a chaplain kind of follows that, and he's going to be spending his time with those that are dying and those that are hurt seriously.
I hope after all that you have a greater appreciation for chaplains in the military and what they do and the unique stresses on them to be available for so many people's emotional and spiritual needs. They provide a great service to our men and women in combat. But there are people who don't want chaplains in the military. I asked Phil what he thought about that.
I think there are groups that do want to remove chaplains from the military. I'm not sure what they think that they gain by that. I don't know how chaplains threaten their existence or their right not to worship or not to believe in anything. I think it's very dangerous, though, because you are taking away the one source of help, of solace, of worship, of practice that soldiers have available to them, right with them, someone that's part of their unit. And if you diminish that in any way or take away, you've taken away the ability for that soldier to satisfy their religious needs, his or her religious needs. There are those that want to say that there should be a separation of church and state, so there shouldn't be chaplains paid for by the government to be in the military. Obviously, that's a misunderstanding of the phrase separation of church and state. That was from Thomas Jefferson writing Danbury Baptist Church, saying that there should be a separation between church and state so that the state doesn't overrun or do in the ability of the church to provide for the religious needs of its people. I mean, you're asking, when you tell a chaplain to be quiet about their faith, or tell just a soldier or any person to be quiet about their faith, what is it you're really saying? You're asking them to deny part of themselves. If you ask them not to do that, you're asking them to deny essentially who they are. If you're asking, it would be the same as asking a doctor, I know you went to medical training, but I don't want you to use it because I don't believe in medicine. I mean, how would you do your job? So.
In addition, chaplains are expected to meet the spiritual needs of a wide range of faiths these days and adjust their beliefs to help someone of a different faith.
Again, a chaplain is sent by an organization that says that chaplain has the right character, the right maturity, the right education, the right ability to take the educational training and apply it in life circumstances. That chaplain represents us, and military will represent you, and so we put him or her forward. If you have groups and what that does is that gives the military standards. They don't want someone coming from a group, from an organization that doesn't have standards. If you have a bunch of the Wiccans do not have chaplains authorized because they don't have an endorser right now, because they can't agree on what the standard is, because there's all sorts of different sects within the Wiccan faith, I guess, if you will. And so the military is not going to accept that. There are about 250 endorsed faiths right now that the military has chaplains. The Army has maybe 123 of those, but across the other services, all 250 are served. But again, if you just have a particular belief system that has no national following, no national headquarters, somebody, or an institution that says this is our standards for education, for practice, for representation of that faith group, then they're not going to be endorsed and they're not going to have a chaplain in the military. Well, Wiccan was considered wild for a long time. Now you have any of the Norse gods, you have the Jedi Knights, Star Wars fame. I mean, you name it, and there's someone out there that's going to believe it and or say that they're a practitioner of it.
Jedi Knights? Norse gods? Chaplains have some interesting challenges, not only when it comes to fringe faiths, but when it comes to endorsing lifestyles they don't agree with.
Well, the most recent case was the case of Chaplain Scott Squires, an Army chaplain endorsed by the Southern Baptists, who, when he found out that a same-sex couple was going to attend the Strong Bonds training, which is marriage enrichment that the Army runs, went and told the soldier that he could not facilitate that training and that he would then, since he couldn't perform, he would provide. And he got another chaplain to do it. They had to change the date of the training, but another chaplain that didn't have any qualms about training same-sex couples was able to do that. The training went off. However, the couple didn't attend, but afterwards they filed a complaint. Chaplain Squires was attacked by the investigator and was threatened with dereliction of duty, which could have been jail time. Certainly besmirched his character. He had done things according to Army procedure. The investigator said he didn't. And when it all came out, finally, Chaplain Squires had done what he was supposed to do. But here was an instance where the same-sex couple said that they were discriminated against, and that wasn't fair, and Chaplain Squires and his religious affairs specialist should be punished. And the Army investigator went after them and presented to the command a case. Fortunately, the command decided that Chaplain Squires had followed procedure. But you have this clash between the rights of the same-sex couple and the rights of the chaplain or any other person with a religious worldview or religious perspective. One of the first things that Chaplain Alliance for Religious Liberty was able to do was have conscience protection language put into the National Defense Authorization Act in 2013, saying that you could not force a chaplain or soldier to do something that violated their conscience. So we have been very active in trying to protect a person's ability. We believe that chaplains and those they serve should be able to exercise their constitutionally protected faith without persecution. And Chaplain Alliance for Religious Liberty is trying to, through our outreach and through our information and our ability to say what is happening on the ground, this is ground truth, influence lawmakers and or decision makers at DOD to make sure that people have the ability to exercise their faith and to live it out as the Constitution protects.
The landmines a chaplain must avoid. It sounds like he's in harm's way 24/7, with all these things getting thrown at him. Another controversy that the military has faced is the tradition of the missing man table. It's a table in a mess hall where nobody sits, but a place is set for a fallen or missing person. Many times a Bible is put on that table, and atheists don't like it.
The missing man table is set there to remind us of the sacrifice of those that went before us. The fact that, and not only the sacrifice, but the possibility of what could happen, and the fact that the country will not forget those, whether they're fallen or missing, that they have an obligation, and that you as a soldier have an obligation to not only remember them, but to never leave a fallen comrade behind. And so the missing man formation, the missing person table, the POW MIA table as it's normally referred to, is a way of reminding those of those that are left behind that we still have to go after. In several cases, organizations have written to the command and said, this violates church and state, you need to take this off or I'm going to do whatever's threatened. And that is enough to get the command to act. In other instances, there's a sign outside of the Marine Corps base in Kaneohe, Hawaii that said, "In God we trust." Certain organization went after that, wrote the commander, and said that that violated the separation of church and state, that you had to remove that. And the commander wrote back, "This has been here since 2001. It will remain here. Thank you very much, Colonel, U.S. Marines commanding." So it was a fantastic answer. First Liberty out of Texas, and particularly Mike Berry, who is a Marine reservist JAG lawyer, wrote to the commander, I believe in New England, when that commander was challenged with saying publicly prayers at command performance events where airmen had to be there for a change of command and could not opt out. And so a chaplain was giving an invocation or a benediction. And Mike Berry said that there was a long tradition of this in our country, that the commander was doing nothing wrong and did not have to answer this group's attack and threats that something would happen if he or she did not stop those prayers. And the commander did not stop the prayer. So There's been victories, defeats, I guess, depending on which side you're on. But the idea that chaplains cannot exercise their faith or pray at command performance, where soldiers don't have the option of opting out, saying I don't want to listen or I don't want to participate, where they have to be there in that formation for this event, has a long tradition and is constitutionally protected. But again, it's the same as they've taken the First Amendment and said, I have a right to speak, and they've turned it around and said, well, I have a right not to be offended by what you say, so you don't have a right to speak. Well, I have a belief system, and I have a right not to be offended by your belief system. And it's come down to who can yell and scream louder, who can threaten more, who can go to court and win the victory and then publicize it and go after the next target.
It always gets me that we support our military for defending our freedom from outside forces that want to take away our freedoms. But our people on the inside fight so hard to take away those same freedoms from the soldiers that protected our freedoms in the first place. The true enemy is within. Philip Wright ended his time with the Chaplain Alliance for Religious Liberty, and he's currently serving as a director and endorsing agent for chaplains of the Evangelical Free Church of America. We appreciate the time that he gave us. And the fight still continues, and you need to be informed. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like this video to see more content coming your way. You can also read my book, Holding the Line, America's Fight for Religious Freedom. It's available on Amazon. Thanks for joining me, and keep holding the line.